Hello and welcome to Make It Happen with Will Polston. I'm Will Polston. This is episode number 28, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about how to overcome overwhelm. So let's just start by talking about, what is overwhelm? And the dictionary definition of overwhelm is to bury or drown beneath a huge mass of something, especially water. Now, I've never drowned, thankfully, and I hope none of you guys have either, but I can only imagine, but what I have done is I've been overwhelmed a huge amount in the past, and I can only imagine that it really can feel like drowning. You know, when you've got so many things to do, you definitely feel like you're not on top of things. I mean, we do use language so powerfully, don't we? When we say that, when we're feeling really good, yep, I'm on top of everything. Like, even just the language that we're using is signifying that we're on top, we're in control. But overwhelm is obviously the opposite of that, and feeling like things are on top of you. And there's so many times when you can feel overwhelmed. I mean, it could be when you're standing in a shop and you can't make a choice of what chocolate to buy. There's so many chocolates, you just don't know what to pick. Or maybe when you're looking at the wardrobe and you don't know what outfit to pick. Or maybe when you're stood at a Chinese buffet and you don't know what to put on your plate. There's so many different types of overwhelm. But in all truth, these types of overwhelm dilemmas are really not going to make much of an inconvenience to your life. And if they are, it's certainly not going to be very long. But that being said, there's obviously other occasions when overwhelm really can have a debilitating effect on you, and lead to all different sorts of negative emotions, and it can be debilitating. You know, it's really not an enjoyable experience. Now, your performance does have a direct link to your ability to manage your emotions and stay calm under pressure, and of course managing the things that you do. And there's actually a research study that's been conducted. It was conducted on over 1 million people, and it identified that 90% of top performers are the ones which is skilled in managing their emotions in times of stress in order to be able to remain control. So what I wanted to do with you is I wanted to share with you some of my top tips, the things that I use, some of the things that I get my clients to do when they're feeling particularly overwhelmed. So if that's you right now, if I don't know, maybe you're overwhelmed because at the time of recording this, it's coronavirus, and maybe you're in work and there's less people helping out because people are furloughed or whatever else it might be. So you're finding you've got more and more tasks to do. Some of these tips can hopefully be useful. So the first thing that I recommend for people is to move. You know, you really can't get away from feeling overwhelmed from a place of overwhelming confusion. So we have to step away to view your circumstances from a different perspective. And sometimes stepping away can literally mean going and moving your body. I remember years ago I read one of the 1 Minute Manager books by Ken Blanchard, and I remember highlighting a part of it that said sometimes you have to take one step back to take 2 steps forward, and I can't agree with that more. Sometimes stopping what you're doing when you've got lots to do seems counterintuitive. Like, I've got lots to do, so I need to be doing it. But actually taking a break from what you're doing, getting up and moving, whether that's moving from the desk that you're sat at, or going out to a different room, going for a walk, going to a different environment like a coffee house or something, going for a run, getting out of the current situation and changing your physiology is going to be the start of being able to gain clarity and shift you away from that overwhelmed state of mind. The quickest way to change your psychology is to change your physiology. So literally get up and move, stop what you're doing, take yourself out of that environment. That's the first thing that I recommend. The second thing that I recommend is write everything down. You know, our minds are really complex things. We're blessed with the ability to think, but of course, being able to think can be an issue too, because we can overthink things, and our short-term memory only enables us to remember between 5 and 9 things at any one point. Now, I'll give you an example of this. So take a phone number. So in the UK, our phone numbers are 11 digits. And when you read out your phone number, you'll read it in a particular sequence. So I read my phone number in a particular sequence. I read the first 5 digits, then I say 3 digits, then I say 3 digits again. And you might have been in a situation like I have in the past where I've said my number to someone over the phone, they've repeated it back to me in a different order, and I can't remember that. And that's because we don't remember 11 individual numbers. I've remembered it in 3 separate chunks, and we do exactly the same And subconsciously, you can think of 134 things at one time. So if we try and store everything in our head, we get overwhelmed really, really quickly because we're using up all of our memory. It's like when you're using a computer. My computer flashes up all the time. You're running out of memory, RAM memory, or whatever it's called, because I'm just working the computer too hard. I've got too many applications open, and it's using up the memory. It's not being able to run efficiently, and that's exactly what we're doing with our minds a lot of the time. So the way that we overcome that is by writing things down. Because if we don't write them down, similarly to when you're using a computer and you've got every application open and you've got 4 million tabs open, it's going to have a much higher likelihood of crashing. So we're going to start by writing everything down, brain dumping every task that you can think of, everything that's in your mind. And that can consist of all what I call the regular tasks you have to do that you'd be doing every day or every week, and then writing down all of the ad hoc tasks. And the really important thing with this is to write everything in one list. So you write everything in one list. And the reason you write everything in one list is because if you don't have one list, you have, I don't know, a list for work, a list for personal, a list for the kids, whatever it might be, and then you've got the thing at the top of your list, you then haven't got one thing at the top of your list. You've got 3 things at your top of your list, and you don't know what to choose first. So by putting them all on one list, you're able to prioritize them. And and the third thing we're going to talk about is priority outcomes. So first thing is move. Second thing is write everything down. The third thing is identifying your priority outcomes. So now we've brain dumped everything. That puts us in a really good position. But what we then need to look at is, what are our priority outcomes? What are the most important things that we need to do? And we can break that down. It's basically goal setting. It's knowing your goals for the quarter, for the month, for the week, for the day, for the morning, for the hour. If you must, break down what is your most important task to do. What is going to move the needle? What is going to be the thing that if you only did that thing, and this is a great question, if I only did this X task in the next hour because I did that task and I got a phone call and I had to rush home, would I feel fulfilled in those actions? Because what so many people do is they make a list of tasks and then they work on the quick ones or the easy ones because they want to make that list get short as quickly as possible. So what you want to look at is, what is going to be the task that's going to move the needle? What is going to be the task that is going to be the difference that makes a difference? And quite often, that's actually a task that you probably don't really want to do. In my experience, it's quite often things you don't want to do. So that's what we're looking for, is the task that's going to move the needle. Another thing that we can do is create then what I call a must-do list, and I've covered this already. If you listen to Master Your Time, the episodes earlier in the show series, then you can go, then great, you've already heard this. If you haven't, I recommend you go back and listen to it to get the full understanding of it. But on a must-do list, there's a few different headings. One of the headings is something called what I call the SHMID, which stands for 7 things I must do today. So you literally have a priority of only 7 things that you're going to do in any day. Now you might be thinking, but Will, I've got to do more than 7 things in any given day. That's okay, but you must do those 7 things first. It means that you start to prioritize. There's no such thing as time management. There's only time mastery, and that comes from priority management. So you need to be able to prioritize appropriately. So that's what we want to look at getting you doing in terms of knowing the actions that you need to take, is knowing those priority outcomes. Now, obviously, you created this list, you've got this big long list, but what I encourage you to do is defree your list. Now, defree, whilst it is also the third film in the Mighty Ducks trilogy, obviously being an ice hockey player, I'm a big fan of the Mighty Ducks, but you'll be pleased to know I'm not going to be getting you to go out and learn to play ice hockey. What I want you to do is look at your list and divide it into 3. So we're going to look at that list and we're going to think, what are things that you're going to do or you really must do? What are things that you can delegate, and what are things that you can delete off the list? Because quite often we put things on our list that actually really aren't that important. So we want to look at how can you or who can you delegate to. So first of all, what can you delegate? And then we're going to look at who you can delegate to, and that could be family members, it could be colleagues, it could be using things like Fiverr or people per hour to outsource tasks. There's lots of different ways that you can outsource and you can delegate stuff, but we really want to look at gaining some time back by delegating. So many times we make assumptions of that we're the only people that can do it, but with a well structured and explained brief of outcomes and time frames of which those outcomes need to be completed by, other people can do stuff. I mean, I know you're special, but you're not that unique that nobody else can do the things that you need to do. It can be done. If you can do it, so can someone else. It's just a case of being able to explain that to them appropriately. So yeah, that's D3. The next thing is what I call the 5 magic words. So the 5 magic words that most people don't use enough, and actually something that I find that women in particular don't use enough. And I really encourage you women, because women are incredible. They take on so much, particularly mothers, you know. I mean, they really are super women. But the 5 magic words are, can you help me please? These simple words are words that will enable your delegate list to be achieved. You know, very, very rarely will you say to someone, can you help me please? And they say no. You know, you'll be amazed at how many people are willing to help just when you ask. So often the problem is that we're actually not allowing that help from happening through our limited thinking. We think that people are going to say no, so we don't ask. But just trust me here and try it. Ask people. You'll be amazed at how many people are willing to help out. So yeah, so that's the 5 magic words. The next thing I want to talk about is how you can limit your distractions. So if you're getting overwhelmed, then distractions really don't help in that instance. So what we want to do is we want to look at limiting those distractions. It actually takes us 17 minutes for our brains to fully engage in what we're doing every time we get distracted, which is crazy. When you think about the amount of notifications that we get in any given week or day or hour these days, you know, it's absolutely crazy. So we want to look at I'm saying notifications, I'm talking about on your phone or your email pinging off. So we want to limit those to as much as we possibly can. All the social media platforms, if you can, you want to look at turning off the notifications, because you think every time you get a notification, you get a message, you get a like, you get a comment, emails, phone calls, text messages. These are so many distractions that we're getting. These are just the ones that we're carrying around in our pockets, let alone distractions from children, colleagues, partners. The list is endless. So what we want to start doing is limiting those distractions. One of the things that I do is I turn off all notifications on my phone. I have my phone on silent, which means that I get to be proactive in checking these things rather than being reactive by them coming to me. And I get to do that on my terms. So that's really, really important. And also, if you're in a working environment, so you want to be productive and you want to be effective and you want to be efficient, then I recommend selecting your environment to limit distractions as well. So not being in a really, really busy place, putting yourself in an environment where you can have some calm around you, where there's not loads going on, will definitely help. And then the last thing is remembering that you're a human being, not a human doing. You know, once you've prioritized taking action, and the action that you need to be taking to deal with that overwhelm, then you could start priming yourself on how you want to be every day when you're doing. You know, you're not a human doing, you're a human being. So my personal choices of how I want to be is I want to be content, I want to be joyful, I want to be present, I want to be humble, I want to be clear-headed, I want to be fun, I want to be playful, you know. And by you deciding how you want to be each day, it's going to enable you to focus on that, and it will have a significant impact on how you feel when you're doing your do's. You know, it's worth understanding that people that are happy perform 12% better, and if you can be putting yourselves in these states, you're going to be able to put yourself in a position where you can perform 12% better too. So another way that you can sort of hack your way to being is by breathing. You know, doing something like box breathing, which is where you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, you hold it out for 4 seconds, and you breathe in again for 4 seconds. Just doing that 3 rounds of that takes less than a minute. It will start to bring down your overwhelm. It will start to bring down your. It will start to make you feel more calm. It will bring down your heart rate. All these things that are going to help you be more effective when you're taking on the tasks that you're doing. So I hope you found that useful. Obviously, let us know, as always, in the Make It Happen community Facebook group, the free group, if you applying these has been beneficial. As always, I'd love for you to share a comment and review of what you thought of this episode, and please give us a 5-star review if you deem the podcast worthy. Hopefully it's been beneficial for you, and yeah, let us know how you get on with it. Until next time, make it happen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Make It Happen with Will Polston podcast. Make sure you join Will's free Facebook group, the Make It Happen community. Please support the show by subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or Google Play. Share this episode with at least one friend you think would benefit from it, and give Will a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts. Until next time, make it happen.